It always begins the same way. A bathroom, a mirror, a single candle, and 3 whispered words. For generations, children have dared one another to stand in the darkness, stare into their own reflection, and say the name Bloody Mary. Some laugh before they begin. Very few laugh afterward. Someone claims they heard footsteps behind them. Someone swears the reflection smiled when they didn't. Another insists the face staring back wasn't their own at all. Most people dismiss these stories as childish imagination, yet the legend refuses to disappear. Long before YouTube challenges, TikTok trends, or internet creepypastas, children were already gathering at sleepovers, locking bathroom doors, and repeating the same ritual. Somehow, generation after generation, the story survived. Which raises an interesting question. Why this legend? Why has Bloody Mary outlived thousands of other ghost stories? More importantly, why a mirror? Out of every object inside a home, why did a simple piece of glass become the center of one of history's most enduring supernatural rituals? To answer that, we have to go back long before anyone ever whispered the name Bloody Mary. Today, mirrors are so ordinary that we barely notice them. We glance at one before leaving the house, fix our hair, and move on for the day. For most of human history, however, a reflection was anything but ordinary. Imagine seeing your own face before anyone understood how light worked. Whether it appeared in still water or polished metal, it felt mysterious, almost supernatural. Many ancient cultures believed a reflection was more than an image. It was connected to the soul itself. The ancient Greeks even practiced katoptromancy, using mirrors in rituals they believed could reveal hidden truth or glimpse into the future. Centuries later, Europeans developed their own beliefs. When someone died, families often covered every mirror in the house. Some feared the deceased spirit might become trapped inside the glass. Others believed mirrors could become doorways between the living and the dead. Whether those beliefs were true mattered less than the fact that people believed them. Parents warned their children. Those children grew up and repeated the same warnings. Over hundreds of years, mirrors slowly became symbols of mystery, death, and the unknown. By the time the Bloody Mary ritual appeared, the mirror already had centuries of supernatural baggage. But if the mirror explains the ritual, who explains the name? That's where the mystery becomes even stranger. The most common theory points to Queen Mary I of England, remembered by history as Bloody Mary after ordering the execution of hundreds of Protestants during her reign in the 1500s. The nickname was real. The Queen was real. The mirror ritual was not. No historical record from her lifetime mentions chanting her name into a mirror. No ghost stories connect her to candlelit bathrooms or supernatural games. The legend simply doesn't exist. Other stories point to a mysterious woman named Mary Worth, described as everything from a witch to a murder victim, depending on who's telling the tale. The problem is that historians can't confirm she ever existed. No reliable records, no trial, no grave. Just stories that changed every time they were retold. One explanation after another leads to the same dead end. Eventually, historians began asking a different question. What if there never was a real Bloody Mary? What if the legend wasn't born from one woman, but slowly stitched together from centuries of mirror superstitions, ghost stories, and folklore until they became a single, unforgettable name? Surprisingly, that theory fits the evidence better than any other. But while historians searched for the past origin of the legend, psychologists became interested in something else entirely. They weren't asking who Bloody Mary was. They wanted to know why so many completely ordinary people were convinced they had actually seen her. In 2010, Italian psychologist Dr. Giovanni Caputo set out to answer that very question. Why do so many ordinary people believe they've seen another face in the mirror? His experiment was remarkably simple. Volunteers sat alone in a dimly lit room and stared at their own reflection for several uninterrupted minutes. There were no ghost stories, no candles, no mention of Bloody Mary. At first, nothing happened. Then the reports began. Some participants said their faces suddenly looked much older. Others claimed they were staring at complete strangers. Several described frightening, distorted faces with hollow eyes or twisted features. One participant even believed they were looking at an animal instead of a human being. These weren't children trying to scare each other at a sleepover. They were ordinary adults taking part in a controlled, scientific study. Caputo concluded that many of them had experienced genuine visual distortions. The mirror hadn't changed, their brains had. Scientists call this effect pareidolia, our brain's tendency to recognize familiar patterns where none actually exist. It's why people see faces in clouds, tree bark, or the surface of the moon. A dark mirror creates the perfect conditions for the same illusion. As you stare, without looking away, tiny movements in your eyes, shifting shadows, and subtle changes in lighting make your reflection less stable than you realize. Your brain begins filling in the missing information, sometimes replacing familiar features with something entirely different. The stranger the image becomes, the more your attention locks onto it. Fear does the rest. That's why two people can perform the exact same ritual under identical conditions and leave with completely different stories. One walks away laughing, the other is convinced they experienced something impossible. Science offers an explanation, but it doesn't erase the feeling. Anyone who's ever frightened themselves knows how convincing the mind can be. A shadow suddenly looks like a person. An ordinary sound becomes footsteps. Once fear takes over, even harmless events begin to feel meaningful. Perhaps that's why the Bloody Mary legend has survived for so long. It doesn't require proof. It only requires an experience that feels real. Even today, countless people continue testing the ritual for themselves. Most expect nothing to happen. One woman later recalled trying it during a sleepover when she was 13. She and her friends laughed through the entire ritual before switching the lights back on. Nothing appeared in the mirror, nothing chased them, nothing supernatural happened. Yet weeks later, she still couldn't shake the uneasy feeling that someone had been standing behind her that night. As an adult, she admits she still refuses to repeat the ritual. Not because she believes Bloody Mary is waiting inside the mirror, but because she never wants to feel that fear again. And maybe that's the true power of the legend. Not that it summons a ghost, but that it reveals how easily the human mind can blur the line between imagination and reality. Which leads to one final question. If history can't identify a real Bloody Mary, and science can explain much of what people experience, why does this story continue to survive century after century when so many other legends have been forgotten? Maybe that's why Bloody Mary has never disappeared, not because anyone has proved she's real, but because the legend taps into something far older than any ghost story: human curiosity. Think about it. The ritual itself is almost absurdly simple. Walk into a dark room, stand before a mirror, say her name, then wait. There's no ancient artifact to find, no haunted house to visit, no special knowledge required. Anyone can try it. And the moment you do, you become part of a story that has been passed from one generation to the next for centuries. Whether you see nothing at all or convince yourself something moved in the darkness, you'll probably remember the experience. That's how urban legends survive. Not because they're proven, because they're personal. Every person who attempts the ritual walks away with a story of their own, and those stories are shared with friends, siblings, classmates, and eventually the internet. The details change. Some insist you must say her name 3 times, others swear it's 13. Some say you need complete darkness, others claim a single candle is enough. The rules have evolved countless times, the mystery hasn't. Perhaps that's because Bloody Mary was never really about summoning a ghost. It was always about uncertainty. What if the stories are true? What if everyone else saw something that you couldn't? And what if, just for one moment, your reflection stopped being entirely your own? History offers one piece of the puzzle. It explains why mirrors became surrounded by centuries of superstition and fear. Science provides another. It shows how expectation, darkness, and the remarkable way our brains process faces can create experiences that feel completely real. Neither explanation completely erases the mystery. Instead, together, they reveal why the legend has endured for so long. Bloody Mary doesn't survive because people are foolish enough to believe every ghost story they hear. She survives because the legend speaks to something deeply human, our fascination with the unknown, our fear of what we can't explain, and our curiosity about what might exist just beyond the edge of certainty. In the end, there may never have been a real Bloody Mary. No forgotten queen trapped inside a mirror. No vengeful spirit waiting for someone to whisper her name. But that doesn't make the legend any less fascinating. If anything, it makes it even more remarkable. A story with no single author, no confirmed origin, and no definitive ending has somehow survived for centuries, crossing countries, cultures, and generations. Very few legends can claim the same. So the next time you find yourself alone in front of a mirror after dark, you may remember everything you've heard today. You'll remember the ancient superstitions, you'll remember the psychology, you'll remember the experiment, and you'll probably know exactly why people think they see impossible things. The real question is this: would you still dare to say her name? Because sometimes the most powerful ghost stories aren't the ones that prove ghosts exist. They're the ones that remind us how mysterious the human mind can be. If you enjoyed this exploration into one of history's most enduring legends, be sure to subscribe for more mysteries, forgotten history, and unexplained stories that continue to blur the line between fact and folklore. Until next time, sleep well. And if you happen to pass a mirror tonight, you might find yourself looking away just a little sooner than usual.